All right, what's good with it, man squad? Welcome back. It's your boy Melly, and we got another banger. No doubt. We got another banger. But look, before we jump straight into the reaction video, gang, listen. We're gonna be reacting to Chillin' Scares, killers who didn't realize they were recorded. Now, from the title of it, I already, going off the initiative that they probably thought they was like 20 steps ahead of the detectives and whoever was working the case. So they really thought that detectives might have been bluffing. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, though, I still kind of curious to see what the nature of this situation gonna be. So with no further talking, gang, let's get straight into the reaction, man. Let's get it.
CCTV cameras across Wembley, London captured a woman walking around with a large
London. Hold on, wait. I gotta turn off. I hate like reacting and looking at my OBS and seeing myself. Like it just make me want to look at myself because god damn, nigga, shit. What? God damn. Yeah. Yeah, nigga, that's how you love yourself. But look, London probably like the #1 place in the world with the most CCTV cameras, gang. You feel me? So there's no chance you was I don't know. Some people just, like y'all niggas just ever talk to a girl, right? Or your homeboy or somebody you know might have been talking to a girl, and you watch them bullface like get rejected, and then you follow up thinking you that special nigga, and you get rejected right off the game. Like niggas just really thinking certain things don't apply to them, bro. Why you committing crime knowing y'all have over 1 million cameras at every corner you look at in London or in the UK, thinking you're gonna get away with it?
Suitcase. On the surface, the footage is completely ordinary. However, this footage would soon become key evidence in one of the most brutal crimes in Wembley's recent history. The incident took place the evening of June 11 when the Metropolitan Police received a call from a man in distress. He was a temporary resident at a house on Chaplin Road, and according to him, the owner of the house, a 67-year-old woman who went by Deborah, was missing. Her phone and glasses, the two things she always kept on her, were also still in the house. But what made her absence most concerning was the fact that Deborah had a history of severe mental health struggles. She was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and at one point believed that Prince Charles, along with the country's prime minister, were communicating with her through YouTube. Deborah also had no family in the country she could.
Oh crap, I think I was in this. Nah, it kind of looked familiar though, but I don't remember this restaurant right here.
Would have gone to either. The only people who knew her were those who attended the same church as she did. And speaking with people from the church gave investigators their first lead. One of Deborah's friends, 37-year-old Gemma Mitchell, told officers that Deborah had been depressed and that she went to stay with friends.
Say with larger reporting, Deborah missing, posters were placed across London with appeal. She claimed she went
close to the ocean. Unfortunately, this lead turned out to be a dead end, as none of the CCTV cameras around her home captured her leaving that morning. Investigators also didn't find any records of her using a taxi service or public transport.
My heart's fine.
I'm only 40.
Ignoring your heart health risk is no way.
Bro, what the fuck? Gang, you just hit me with an ad just to cause my shit to keep buffering, my nigga. I ain't gonna lie, you might have to restart the video. Hold on, wait. Ah, man. Bro, this shit just, oh my God, gang. Bro, how the fuck this shit just went through with a full refresh, but then it refused to play the video? Bro, this shit cannot be real. This shit cannot be real, bro. Fuck, man.
Searching it.
Hold on, wait. This shit at 144. I might have to restart my Wi-Fi, bro.
Investigators had nearly run out of all potential leads. They needed a breakthrough, or the case risked going unsolved forever. Fortunately, the search finally reached its end on June 27, but in the way investigators feared most.
Cold
Hi, I
case.
just found a body. Oh, go ahead, caller. What's your emergency? I
Just
just found a body.
A body.
Right, okay. A body. Is it?
A body.
Are they breathing? No, they're dead. They look like they've possibly been there like a few days or something.
A hiker discovered the remains of Deborah on a wooden path next to Bennett Road in Sulcombe, Devon, over 200 miles from her home in Wembley. The worst part about this discovery, however, was the condition investigators found her in. This wasn't a case of going for a hike and having an accident. Instead, someone had surgically decapitated her head, which was later discovered about 30 feet away from the rest of her body.
What?
Autopsy results also showed signs of blunt force trauma to the head. With that, the case shifted from a missing person search to a homicide
murder
investigation.
yeah.
However, finding the culprit was going to be easier said than done, largely because Deborah never gave anyone a reason to take her life. Despite her mental health struggles, everyone who knew her described her as extremely kind and compassionate. She was even letting the temporary resident who filed the missing person report live with her for free since he couldn't afford to pay rent.
What if, well, I ain't gonna lie, that would be messed up. He did it. The fact that she, like, you know, like, I ain't gonna lie, like, in some situations, like, I be watching some videos, gang, like, some people, they might get evicted and they feel like the way to go about it is, you know, taking the person out that owned the goddamn apartment complex or some shit like that, right? But look, it would be even messed up more if she let him stay for free and that was his way of paying her back. That would
But
be
while
fucked
investigating
up.
those closest to her, investigators noticed something suspicious about Gemma. CCTV cameras captured Gemma walking toward Deborah's home with a blue suitcase on the morning of June 11, the same day she went missing at around 6:30 a.m. Hours later, the same cameras captured Gemma walking back, this time with 2 suitcases. She was also struggling more to roll the suitcases, suggesting that, unlike before, they were now heavy. This made Gemma the primary suspect in Deborah's murder, prompting investigators to look into her more
she fit her body
closely,
inside,
which
yeah?
turned out to be the right move. On the 26th of June, CCTV cameras captured her struggling to load the same blue suitcases into the back of a rental car. She then drove to the same road where Deborah's remains were found a day later. This was enough evidence for the police to obtain a warrant and arrest Gemma on July 6th.
You gotta be sick. God damn.
Police! Hello there.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, good. There's no answer. Sorry, what's your name?
Sorry, we were asleep.
Are you Gemma?
Yeah, I
Okay, Gemma. Just could you hold a second?
am. Sure, sure.
Hold on a second.
Sorry, could I
Gemma, do you want to come out?
Yeah, sure, sure.
Yeah, I just want to see them.
Hand just over to your hands. All right, Gemma, at this moment, I'm arresting you on
Yeah,
suspicion of
she,
murder.
I ain't gonna lie. I know what's racing through her mind is, fuck. Can't believe they finally put the pieces together because, damn, like, you know, them police raids or them police, like, these kind of situations, they wait late, you feel me? They come in late when you sleep, when they know, like, there's a less chance for you to, you know, go ahead and do some shit to kind of, like, prepare yourself. They come through when you sleep, when you ain't expecting them. And I know she probably like thinking, damn, boy, I ain't gonna lie, they finally catch up to me. Like, boy, I ain't gonna lie, like, it probably was a relief for her too, because, you know, I be hearing motherfuckers be like, hey, once they behind you and you, like, once you know you do some shit and you know that they probably investigating and they getting like one step closer to figuring it out, like, it's like a paranoia feeling, you feel me? It's like always looking over your shoulders and things like that.
Sure.
Yeah, I just want to see them.
Hand just over to your hands. All right, Gemma, at this moment, I'm arresting you on suspicion of murder.
Gemma didn't even try to plead her innocence and went with the
Yeah.
officers without any resistance, almost as if she was already expecting them to some extent. She
see?
also remained silent at the station, answering every question with a cold no comment. But now that she was under arrest, authorities were able to search her home, and it wasn't long before everything became clear.
Bro, how,
you see,
how stupid you gotta, why the fuck you still have the suitcase? Why you didn't dispose this? Bro, I ain't gonna lie. There's something that I noticed about watching a lot of these videos though. Bro, what's the point of keeping the things that you use for the fucking murder, bro? Like, what's the point? Why keep it? Why you just don't get rid of it? Why you just don't go ahead and, you know, burn it, do what you gotta do, throw it in the dumpster? Shit, that shit hit some landfill. They definitely ain't finding it. But you keep it right there, probably thinking that you just permanently got away with it and they gave up on it entirely, thinking that, I bet you know, it's time to carry on with life. Like nothing happened. You damn near might take the same suitcase that you had a body in to goddamn board a flight. You like, gang.
Gemma lived with her mother in their home on Bronsbury Park. The house was worth over £4 million, but it was in rough shape. So they hired a contractor and paid him over £230,000 for the renovations. Unfortunately, the contractor ran away with the money, leaving Gemma and her mother with an incomplete home and no money to fix it. That's where Deborah stepped in, giving Gemma and her mother pounds for the renovation. So they hired a contractor and paid him over £230,000 for the renovation.
Nah, hey, that's hey, what?
Unfortunately, the contractor ran away with the money, leaving Gemma and her mother with an incomplete home and no money to fix it. That's where Deborah stepped in. She knew Gemma from church and considered her a friend. So after learning about her struggle, Deborah offered to pay over £200,000 for the renovations. However, in early 2021, Deborah was admitted to a mental facility where she received treatment for her schizophrenia. This treatment seemed to be very effective, as she was now thinking a lot more clearly. It also resulted in her reconsidering her offer to Gemma and withdrawing it completely by early June. She instead told Gemma to...
So that's the motive. Makes sense. Damn, I ain't gonna lie. Shorty got a bittersweet feeling about it. She was like, gang. This lady probably wasn't even in the best mental space making that decision to help because, bro, listen, everybody got their own shit going on in life, my nigga. Ain't nobody gonna save you. Ain't nobody thinking about you, nigga. You go ahead and you do what you gotta do and move on with life. You feel me? Nigga, somebody might see you doing something and probably might think some of it at the time, but I promise you, 10 seconds after that, bro, they back to focusing on what they got going on in their life. So I say that to say this. For a random woman that you know from church to just kind of feel her pain in the sense of, you know, it probably kind of like made her feel some type of way and wanted her to lend a helping hand. And then on top of that, she probably wasn't even in the best state mentally to, you know, fully think the situation through. Like, damn, I doing this out of the kindness of my heart, but at the same time, her mental condition probably letting her go through with it like it's the right decision. So when she started to get the treatment and she started to start thinking a lot clearly, like they just mentioned, like it's more on some, wait, what the fuck? It's like the epiphany hit. It's like, bro, what the fuck am I doing? Why the fuck, bro, why am I giving this woman $200,000 to fix a crib when I got my own shit to deal with? and I genuinely feel like that woman just got a little bittersweet, like a little bitter taste, like a bittersweet feeling, like, damn, like, I just thought you was about to do this. Now it seemed like you about to change your mind and reconsider this entire decision. So she might have, you know, gone through, followed through with unaliving her, and then see if she could get. Now I don't know how she's gonna get the money. I don't know if the money was already sent or if it was already in like a process or something. But it seemed like that was her plan.
Sell the house and use the money to live a good life. Phone records revealed a message she sent to Gemma on June 8, reading, "Until you sold house, I won't want you to come to me or my house. I'm stressed to the core." However, Gemma did not take this kindly, and on the 11th of June, she went to Deborah's home with the intention of eviction by early June. She instead told Gemma to sell the house and use the money to live a good life. Phone records revealed a message she sent to Gemma on June 8, reading, "Until you sold house, I won't want you to come to me or my house. I'm stressed to the core."
Oh, so I think, okay, so most likely she might have mentioned it to her like on some, look, I'll look out for you and kind of like, you know, help you renovate the crib. But after her treatment, you know, she started thinking a lot more clear. So boom, you can see it started to like play out, you feel me? Until you sell this crib, like stop coming to my crib or stop coming to me when you see me, or stop coming to me at my crib, stressing me out about giving you the money to help you do your shit. You feel me? Like sell the motherfucking and go ahead and buy something else and do what you gotta do. You feel me? And I guess she didn't like that. You know what I mean?
However, Gemma did not take this kindly. And on the 11th of June, she went to Deborah's home with the intention of ending her life. After committing the crime, she stuffed Deborah's remains in the suitcase and brought it back home, which is why it looked much heavier on the way back, before disposing of her remains in Solcombe 2 weeks later. Her true motive also came to light when investigators discovered a forged will in Gemma's home, naming her and her mother as the sole beneficiaries of Deborah's entire estate. All of this was more than enough evidence to convict Gemma. She stood trial on October 2022 and was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 34 years behind bars.
And she got a smirk behind that shit too. Yeah, that's crazy, boy. Be careful who you trust.
On July 7th, 2021, 23-year-old Chandler Halderson went to the local sheriff's office and filed a missing person report for his parents, 50-year-old Bart and 53-year-old Krista. According to Chandler, the two had gone to their family cabin in White Lake on July 2nd to spend the weekend. The last contact he had with them was a message from Krista writing, "Made it safely, can't get anything through, and yes, it's packed. Going to White Lake today for the parade, and we'll come home Monday night/Tuesday early. Love you lots." It was Wednesday now, and the two had still not returned. Their phones were also going straight to voicemail, leaving Chandler with no way to determine their current whereabouts. Now, the simplest explanation was that they simply decided to extend their stay, and that they weren't able to inform Chandler because of the bad cell signal at the cabin, which was a known issue. However, this was completely out of character for them. Bart was extremely punctual and responsible, and Krista was on the verge of losing her job if she didn't return soon. Chandler was understandably worried about the safety of his parents. To make matters more complicated, they didn't go to the cabin on their own. Instead, they were apparently picked up by friends that Chandler didn't know about. Officers quickly began looking for the couple while Chandler reached out to local media, hoping someone with information on Bart and Krista.
Friends that they don't know about. Sketchy already.
Might come forward. The
real.
most obvious place to look for them was the cabin, but when officers arrived at the location, they were surprised to see it completely empty. They had to break open the front door only to find zero signs of recent activity. It seemed like Bart and Krista never made it to the cabin. But if that was the case, why did Krista tell Chandler that they made it safely in her text? In the meantime, Chandler turned to the neighbors to check if any of their doorbell cameras captured anything about Bart and Krista. But that didn't prove.
No cap, bro. It seemed like he the only. I don't know what's the family dynamic, but it genuinely seemed like he's the only person that's like involved with his parents. Like outside of that, he might not have any siblings too. But damn, I ain't gonna lie. That's a feeling that, you know, I wouldn't want on nobody. You feel me? Like, you know, you just trying to find your parents' whereabouts. You just going through the motions, just stressed, and like your stomach just tight. You know, you just kind of like knowing it's bad, but you just at least want to answer just to kind of like give you a little bit of relief. But if it's bad news, it's like, damn, it's still tragic, but it's like, at least I got something. You know what I mean? Then to just be sleeping, like, knowing in the back of your mind, you don't know what's going on.
Very useful either. Without any other leads, investigators went back to the Halderson home to look for any clues. They also brought Chandler in for questioning since he was the last person who saw the couple. Though, until now, Chandler appeared to be a perfect son. Despite living with his parents, Chandler was doing very well for himself.
Wait, hold on, my nigga. What? Let me...
He had already gained valuable work experience in several different fields at just 23 years old, and had even received a job offer from SpaceX. Unfortunately, before he could accept the offer, he accidentally fell down the stairs. This resulted in him sustaining severe nerve damage in the legs, forcing him to reject the SpaceX offer and focus on recovery.
Damn, that's crazy.
I have a question.
Man, fuck
You can ask me anything.
He had also been very cooperative with the police up until this point, but as it turned out, the concerned look on his face was nothing but a complete lie. His behavior started becoming suspicious as soon as he was brought in for questioning. Not realizing he was being recorded, Chandler was seen in the interrogation room putting his head up against the wall, almost as if he was trying to listen in on what the detectives knew, likely so he could adjust his story accordingly. The investigators searching his home also discovered some rather concerning evidence. This included things like missing floor tiles and cabinets from the kitchen, a broken glass pane from the fireplace, and most concerningly, splatters of recently cleaned blood all throughout the house. However, Chandler seemed to have an excuse for everything. He blamed the missing tiles and cabinets on renovations, and claimed the fireplace glass broke while playing with one of his dogs using a tennis ball. As for the blood, Chandler claimed that it came from Krista having excessive nosebleeds, and from Bart getting a deep cut on his leg while doing some repair work at home. But investigators were starting to notice some inconsistencies in his statements. For instance, at one point during the interview, Chandler claimed that he couldn't drive because of his leg injuries. But not long after, he mentioned driving to multiple places to celebrate the 4th of July holiday. However, despite their suspicion, investigators had no proof of any foul play from Chandler. That is, until they received a call from a woman named Cress. She was a family acquaintance of Chandler's girlfriend Catherine, and the two had actually gone to her place for dinner on the 4th of July. According to Kress, Chandler visited her farm in Cottage Grove on July 3rd, asking to use her pool. She said yes and went on with her day. But when she came back to check on him an hour later, he wasn't in the pool. Instead, his car was backed up to a wooded area next to the farm and its trunk was open. Investigators rushed to the location she provided, and not far into the wooded area, they found the dismembered remains of Bart Halderson, wrapped in a tarp and hidden
worst of the fucking worst.
Under some foliage. Around the same time, a different group of investigators discovered doorbell camera footage that showed the Halderson home in plain view. According to this footage, Bart and Krista never stepped foot outside on the morning of July 2nd. In other words, the story of the mystery friends picking them up was a complete lie. But when confronted with this evidence, Chandler stopped talking and asked for a lawyer.
You know what happened.
And they got the body though, so you definitely getting fried. I ain't gonna lie. Evidence ain't even as much circumstantial no more. They got the body, so good luck trying to fight that.
I couldn't have told you what happened. You know what happened. You were there when it happened.
Why would you do that?
I wasn't there when it happened today.
We know more than you think we know.
You can see in his face he looked distressed. You can tell
there's people that have told us things. We have evidence. We have proof. More has happened. Okay. So your parents never made it to the cabin, and I think you know that.
Yeah, just give it up.
Okay. So you're asking for an attorney. We're not going to ask any more questions.
That's him.
Yeah, just give it up. Nigga, you caught.
Krista's remains were later discovered in an area near the Wisconsin River as well. Fortunately, investigators
so he buried himself. Oh, that's
were
crazy.
able to find enough evidence to piece together exactly what happened between Chandler and his parents, and why. They found Bart and Krista's phones inside the house wrapped in aluminum foil to block signals, confirming they never left the home. Shell casings found in the basement also confirmed that he more than likely shot his parents before dismembering and disposing of their remains. CCTV footage from a nearby supermarket caught him buying the tarp he used to transport Bart. However, the worst of what he did was revealed when investigators found tiny bone fragments in his fireplace. You see, at around 3 a.m. the night of...
Nigga, what kind of hate you gotta have for your parents, my nigga? What? Bro, I ain't gonna lie. Listen, if I have kids... Hey, boy, the internet will have you see some crazy shit and have you think some crazier shit. Bro, what it was, what they did to you. You feel me? What happened in your life with your parents that got you so infuriated to do this? To this extent, my nigga. This is not normal.
A neighbor's doorbell camera captured a strange light coming from the Haldersons' home. It got extremely bright before going out. Put simply, this bright light his neighbor's camera captured came from Chandler trying to cremate his parents. But the fire likely got out of hand and shattered the glass pane, resulting in him abandoning that idea. As for why he committed such a horrific crime, that had to do with his successful career. As it turned out, almost all of it was a lie. He never graduated, never did any jobs he claimed to have done, and thus the offer from SpaceX was a lie as well. Bart apparently found out about it, and instead of facing the consequences of his years-long lie, Chandler decided that it was a better idea to take his parents' lives instead. He stood trial in January 2022 and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Damn, boy. Worst of the worst.
On the night of December 28, 2016, a home security camera mounted outside a garage in Albuquerque, New Mexico captured a seemingly bizarre scenario. It showed a hooded figure walk out of the darkness, gently tip over a trash can, and then disappear into the darkness once again. Not long after, the resident of the home noticed the trash can and came to pick it back up before walking back inside. The camera then captured the light from the garage door getting dimmer as it closed. But before it closed all the way, the door seemed to open again with a flashing light illuminating the driveway. This looked quite random at first glance. However, what happened in this footage served as the start to a brutally violent crime that happened in the same house. The story began earlier that night when 54-year-old Don Fluid dropped off his daughter Sienna at his now ex-wife Christine's house. The next day, Sienna called Don's office, asking if he'd come to work that day. Apparently, he called Sienna every night to say goodnight, but he didn't call the night before, which worried her. And something was definitely not right. Don had never missed work without prior notice before. His phone was also ringing, but he wasn't picking up, which was very out of character for him. Many considered him the most upstanding person they knew, and it wasn't like him to ghost others out of nowhere. so two of his coworkers decided to check up on him at his house that afternoon. However, when they reached the front door, it swung open. It was already unlocked. They called out Dawn's name, but when they heard no response, they decided to go inside. Everything in the house looked very normal. That is, until one of the coworkers went to the garage. There, she spotted a dark red streak on the wall behind the parked truck. She stepped closer to take a better look, only to come across what she was dreading the most. She called 911 and first responders rushed to the scene. Sadly, it was already too late for Don. He had several cuts on his body, a deep cut on his neck, and signs of blunt force trauma to his face. By the time his coworkers found him, he had already been dead for several hours.
Yeah, you could tell there's probably like signs of struggle right there.
The Albuquerque police immediately launched a murder investigation.
When is
got
it
some
time
sick
to
people
end
in
a relationship? And when is it time to fight for it?
However, the only clue they had was this home security footage. It wasn't clear enough to make out the suspect's face, but the footage did suggest the intruder knew Don's habits quite well. He knew his daily routine, and more importantly, he knew Don wouldn't be able to ignore the trash can if it were lying on the ground, giving him the chance to sneak into the garage while Don picked it back up. This wasn't a random burglar or serial killer who just saw an opportunity. It was likely someone close to Don. Unfortunately, figuring out who this person was turned out to be near impossible. The first suspect police questioned was Terry Lee White, Christine's now husband. Given Don's history of an intense custody battle against Christine and Terry in the past, investigators began to look for any lingering resentment that could have boiled over into violence. However, when questioned, Terry was able to provide alibis for that night that completely checked out. The next two potential suspects were Don's brother Dennis, who didn't have the best relationship with Don, and the landlord Benny Ruiz. But while neither had a strong alibi, there was also no evidence linking the two to the crime scene. With that, the investigation was back at square one. It wasn't until March 31, 2017 that the killer was identified. It turns out the person who led detectives to the truth was none other than Don himself. You see, despite likely getting ambushed by the killer, Don did not go down easy. He fought back and ended up scratching the attacker. This allowed investigators to find foreign DNA under his fingernails and match it against the samples police had taken from the suspects. More than 3 months after the crime, Don's killer was finally identified as 51-year-old Terry Lee White. After clocking in at work as a commercial truck driver, Terry went to Don's place and carried out a plan he had likely been thinking over for a very long time. With the home security footage of him sneaking in Don's driveway showing how premeditated this whole thing was. After a brief manhunt, Terry was arrested on April 3, 2017 in Arizona, about 200 miles from Albuquerque. He stood trial in June 2018 for his crime and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
So that's the ex-wife. I mean, that's the new husband of his ex. Bro, you crashed out over pre-owned cat, but you went out over pre-owned coochie. Worst of the worst, gang. Worst of the